The cheap guitar debate has stepped up a notch, and I'm here for it. The question of the day is, how much do you need to spend on a guitar for it to be considered a good guitar? Let's do this. Okay, look, I'm going to come clean. I am not a wealthy man. And I'm sure that if I had more money than I do now, then I would probably buy more expensive guitars. I mean, there's guitars that I want. I don't need them. I don't need a Steve Vai floral gem from the late 80s, but I do want one. Truth to tell, in the last 15 years or so, I've never spent more than £1,000 on a guitar. In fact, most of my guitars I've bought second hand, and I've paid less than 500 quid for them. But they are the guitars I like. My main number one guitar I use for just about everything is my Fender Player Deluxe Strat. I didn't pay much for that one. Still the best guitar I've ever played or owned. But like I said, if I had more money, then I probably would buy some more expensive guitars. Maybe. Amps, definitely, yes. But for me, as long as the guitar does the job that I bought it for, I'm happy. I mean, I can set my own guitars up. And all of my guitars play very nicely, thank you very much. Even the Harley Bentons. And I'm not even sponsored by Harley Benton. I just like some of their guitars. But Glenn Fricker, this guy, he made a video the other day and he was talking about cheap guitars. And the gist of what he was saying was, you can get away with a cheaper guitar if you've got a good amp and a cab and a microphone. I think in this context, Glenn was talking about in a recording situation scenario type thing. And he showed off a couple of sub $300 guitars. They were pretty cool. Now, one of the reasons that I don't usually talk too much about cheaper guitars is that I always get some dude in the comments and he's saying stuff like, you only like cheap guitars because you're broke. Dude, I am broke. There's church mousers running around out there with bigger stacks than me. I got no stack. But if it really came down to it, if I had to, I could sell some of my cheaper guitars and spend a ton of money on one guitar. But I won't. So yeah, I hold my hands up and say, one of the reasons that I don't talk about cheap guitars, it's the comments. People are dicks. Now, I don't need to be reminded, okay, of how little money I have. I already know. But then, Glenn Fricker, this guy, bless his cotton socks, just casually came out with the best argument in the favour of cheap guitars I have ever seen, and that's what I'm here for. Glenn proved beyond all reasonable doubt that you don't have to spend a fortune on a guitar for it to sound good. This guy, this is Eddie Van Halen, Eddie, EVH, holding his Frankenstrap that he put together for about $250, is what Glenn said. $250. Look, love him or hate him, Eddie Van Halen played one of the greatest and most popular and memorable guitar solos of all time, Eruption. And he played it on a $250 second-hand guitar that he put together himself. Not to mention how many other epic solos and riffs he came up with on a $250 guitar. Eddie didn't need no custom shop, or a PRS wood library, or a Kiesel that costs more than my car. Look, I'm not a Glenn Fricker fanboy. I enjoy some of his stuff. I'm not a fan. Sometimes he's a bit shouty for my liking. But Glenn knows his stuff. And by pointing out that some of the greatest riffs ever played on a guitar, solos, whatever, were played on a $250 guitar, well, that's me sold. I am now a fierce advocate of the cheap guitar. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute that I have even 5% of Eddie Van Halen's talent. I don't. I suck. But what I do know is that a custom shop Les Paul or a wood library PRS guitar is not going to make me a better guitar player. I also know that an Axe FX or a Kempo won't make me any better. I mean, it might make the stuff I play sound a little bit better, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm happy with the gear I've got. I've got a few half stacks. I've got an orange, I've got a Marshall, I've got a Black Star, I've got a Tonex Amplitube, I've got a Line 6 Stomp thingy, amongst other things. And I've got several guitars. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute that I'm going to stop buying gear or guitars. I mean, I love playing around with stuff, and I consider myself to be something of a collector. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. Besides, you never know. One day I might get my hands on that bit of gear that changes my life. I have a standard setup that I use for rehearsals and for when I play live, and I'm super happy with the gear I've got. Honestly, I could not be happier with my tone. So yeah, moving forward, I probably will be taking a look at some cheaper gear that's out there. And anyone that comes at me with the, you just buy cheap stuff because you're poor, I'm going to be coming straight back out with this picture of Eddie Van Halen with the quote under it, $250. That's all Ed had to spend. And he'll be forever remembered as a guitar god because of it. And there's no end of greats that play lower end guitars. I mean, Mike Rutherford, he plays Squire Bullets, and everybody knows that the Squire Bullet is the worst of all the Squires. I guess if the guitar is set up right, stays in tune, you've got a decent amp, and you can play the damn thing, it doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, feel free to come at me in the comments, but I will just say Frankenstrat, $250, bro. And you can't even argue with that. So, thank you, Glenn Fricker, for your words of wisdom and the best comeback a broke motherfucker like me will ever have for all the millionaires in my comments dissing my finances. Please jump in the comments and let me know what you think. Also, I'd love to know, what's the most you would ever spend on a guitar? And what do you think is more important? The guitar, the amp, the effects, the player? Be interesting to know. Anyway, that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff. It really helps the video get out there into the algorithm. If you want to help support the channel, I've got some merch for sale, like t-shirts and hoodies and shower curtains and stuff. Seriously, I've got a shower curtain, go and check it out. If you also want to help support the channel, there's super chats, make your chat stand out, and there's memberships starting at like, I don't know, $2.99 a month or something like that. And don't forget, I stream every Wednesday, 9 PM UK time. It's just me and some buddies, and we're talking about guitars and gear and guitar news and stuff. The last Wednesday of every month, I do a quiz where the contestants get a chance to win one of my eBay guitar pedals, so definitely worth coming and checking out. Anyway, thanks again, take it easy, and peace out.